Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. When the conflict in the hospital broke out, Ariana instinctively pushed me out of the way to protect her first love. After that, we had a falling out and broke up. Ariana said to me in disappointment, "Why couldn't you protect your own teacher? Why couldn't you step up? Sincerely, he's a doctor for life. He'll be holding the scalpel." I immediately told her to get lost. The conflict happened so suddenly that the entire department fell into chaos. The doctors were shouting, "Run! Protect the patients!" I remembered what my teacher had told me. If something happens, hide behind the machinery. Those things are more valuable than us. I decisively pulled the frightened girl towards the medical equipment, but someone grabbed my hand and pulled me back. It was Ariana. I thought she would pull me to run with her, but unexpectedly, she pushed me out of the way. I stumbled a few steps before gaining my balance. The knife-wielding maniac lunged towards me, shouting, "I'll kill all you heartless doctors." Dr. Ariana immediately pulled me behind him. I tried to explain something when I heard a piercing scream. It hurt so much. It was Daniel. He had been stabbed. I was stunned with fear, thinking that if Dr. Ariana hadn't pulled me in time, I would have been the one stabbed. "Ariana, what on earth are you thinking?" Very soon after, the security guards had controlled the troublemaker. Daniel was lying on the ground, bleeding. His red blood stained his blue and white clothes. Ariana was in a panic, pushing people aside to help him up. "Are you okay? Don't go to sleep, Daniel. Wake up." Her face pale, she shouted, "Quick, bring a stretcher over here." Before being put on the stretcher, Daniel placed his hand on Ariana's face and said something like this. Everyone looked at me because I was Ariana's boyfriend. Daniel had been stabbed in the leg. The wound wasn't deep and wasn't dangerous. I leaned against the wall, watching the two of them in the hospital room, full of compassion for each other. Ariana didn't leave his side until Daniel woke up. Rumors had already spread in the department that the two of them were high school classmates, even that they were each other's first love. I once asked Ariana, and she said they were just ordinary friends, ordinary classmates. But I had never seen her so gentle and careful, as if a slight noise would make Daniel afraid. "Does it hurt?" Daniel choked out. "I thought I would never see you again." Ariana squeezed his hand tightly and placed it on her lips to kiss Daniel. "I'm the one who got stabbed," she said. Hearing this, Daniel was moved. "Actually, I came to this hospital because of you. Let's get back together. I can't bear the days without you by my side. They were so painful. Those days we had together were so beautiful that no one could see me." "Dr. Edward," the doctor said. "Excuse me, could you step aside a bit?" A young nurse holding a tray carefully said, "I need to change the bandages for Daniel." Daniel, at this moment, the two of them realized my presence. Ariana quickly withdrew her hand, embarrassed, and asked Dr. Edward, "What are you doing here?" I suppressed my anger and pain as if being cut by a knife, trying to appear calm. "Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you two reminiscing about the past." Dr. Edward, with red eyes, turned his head and said, "What's there to explain? I'll explain that you deceived me, that you two were just ordinary friends. I'll explain that you two got back together and my presence was just an annoyance." I took a deep breath, trying to control my emotions. "Or should I explain that you deliberately pushed me out of the way to shield him? Right?" Ariana was speechless and awkward for a moment. After a while, she said, "It's a surgeon, he needs to hold the scalpel." I laughed angrily. "What about me? Have you forgotten that I'm also a doctor who needs to hold the scalpel? I'm not running a private clinic where I'm always visible." I was about to lose my temper when Ariana quickly grabbed my shoulders, trying to persuade me in an unusually gentle tone. "Dr. Edward, I'll protect you. It was just to buy some time. It's okay, the security guard will be here any moment. Use my life to buy time." I couldn't bear it any longer and slapped her straight in the face. "Ariana, I think we have nothing more to say. Let's break up." She looked at me in disbelief. After a few seconds of silence, she spoke with an extremely cold expression. "Dr. Edward, you know I'm right. He's a doctor invited back by the hospital after returning from abroad. His abilities are truly not comparable to yours. You've already given way to your teacher once. You should do the same for Daniel this time." Hearing her mention my teacher, I fell silent. Ariana shook her head in disappointment. I've taught you so much, yet you're still childish and can't see the bigger picture. Daniel is a doctor for life. He needs to hold the scalpel. If he gets injured for life, it would be a disaster. That's why you pushed me out of the way to shield him. I just found it ridiculous. Why didn't you shield him yourself? Ariana hesitated for a few seconds. Dr. Edward, could you bear to let me get hurt? I also need to hold the scalpel. You once said you hoped I would become an excellent surgeon. Could you bear it? I calmly replied. Dr. Edward, your heart is made of iron, isn't it? You can't bear to get hurt yourself. You can't bear to see Daniel get hurt, but you can bear to see me get hurt. It's really ridiculous. Ariana is a senior of mine. We met at a class reunion. She was a special guest invited by the class monitor at the city's #1 hospital. She was praised as being very outstanding. She was very kind to the group of interns about to enter the profession. We surrounded her asking all sorts of questions. She didn't show any annoyance at all. Before leaving, she added, "There are many of you here who are very polite. If you have any questions, just ask me." First, she was just on my list of friends. It wasn't until I started my internship at the hospital and discovered the good relationship between her and my mentor. Things changed whenever I had questions. I would ask her a few sentences. Gradually, we became close. One time, I had a sudden appendicitis flare-up. My mentor was away at a seminar, and no one was paying attention to me. Ariana called her mentor in the middle of the night to perform surgery on me. She even hired someone to take care of me, arranging everything perfectly. My parents weren't here, and in this unfamiliar place, being sick and meeting someone as gentle and considerate as her, I was quickly attracted. When I was discharged from the hospital, I invited her to eat at the hospital cafeteria. The two mentors saw us and joked, "Ariana and Ethan both don't have boyfriends yet. Maybe we should have an internal digestive system relationship." I bit my chopsticks and smiled awkwardly at her. But I didn't expect that a week later, Ariana confessed to me, "Dr. Edward, I've been thinking for a long time, not knowing how to tell you. I remember that night. The moon was full and unusually bright. When I saw you in pain squatting on the ground, I was very heartbroken seeing you pretending to be fine, trying to sound strong when calling your parents. I was truly distressed. Dr. Edward, even though I'm very busy, I still have time for romance. Will you be my boyfriend?" The moonlight was really beautiful that night. The gentle breeze extended her shadow. She was beautiful, rational, gentle, and considerate. She was truly a suitable girlfriend. After a year of dating, we rented a house near the hospital and lived together. On the days we weren't on duty, we studied surgical techniques together, researched medical cases, and watched videos of experts in the field. We often bought a lot of grapes to practice on. She taught me how to suture wounds beautifully. We learned from each other, worked hard together, grew together, and brought emotional value to each other. We almost never argued. I thought we were very happy until 6 months ago when Daniel arrived. Rumors started circulating in the hospital. I didn't believe them. I thought that even if Daniel was Ariana's first love, she would handle it rationally because, in my eyes, she was the embodiment of rationality. But this medical violence incident clearly revealed the relationship between the three of us. I felt confused and absurd. It turned out that this was the real Ariana, cold, rational, selfish, and not in love with me. I didn't recognize her anymore. The person who used to love and care for me had changed without my realizing it. Perhaps I just didn't understand her well enough. Maybe the care she once showed me was actually just pity for Daniel, who was away from home and had no one to take care of him. Suddenly, I felt exhausted looking at Ariana. I spoke in a very calm voice. "Ariana, let's break up." "Do we really have to break up?" Ariana's face darkened, filled with discomfort. "Dr. Edward, you're angry. I don't want to argue with you. I understand that any man facing his girlfriend's feelings, first love, would lose his rationality and calmness. Please calm down, think carefully, and then decide whether to break up or not. If you insist on breaking up, I respect your decision." Ariana appeared rational and gentle, speaking in a submissive manner, but her words subtly implied that I was the rational one. I laughed. "Actually, you also want to break up to get back together with Daniel, right? Pretending any further just makes you more awkward." Yes, if Dr. Edward has said to break up, then Dr. Ariana, you are an adult. Don't be indecisive. I turned my head. Dr. Allen was watching the drama from the side. Am I wrong? Being entangled like this is not the action of an adult, is it? Ariana's face turned pale. The hospital and the police were investigating and handling this medical violence incident. All medical staff present had to cooperate and give statements. I said I was not a surgeon. After my shift, I wanted to have dinner with my girlfriend, but she was no longer my girlfriend. After recounting the situation at that time, I paused and then spoke firmly. I have one more thing that needs an explanation. Dr. Edward, please speak. At that time I had run away, but Dr. Ariana pushed me towards the troublemaker. Then she said she didn't want the troublemaker to harm Dr. Daniel. I suspect this was an intentional act of causing injury. The people in charge looked at each other. One of them stood up. Dr. Edward, is this true? Yes, I have a recording. The person in charge thought for a moment. Please hand over the recording to us. We will cooperate with the police and definitely give you an explanation. Not long after I left, the person in charge said to the police, let's let them investigate this internally. Ariana was called into the office to face the interrogation of the person in charge. Ariana appeared extremely calm. There's no such thing. Ethan is my boyfriend. I just wanted to pull him back, but I didn't expect to pull him off course. Even if the recording is real, what I said is the truth. I just wanted to protect such an excellent doctor. What's wrong with that? He was so brave once shielding his teacher. This time it was for a colleague. What's the difference? I don't know what happened in the office that afternoon. I was having lunch at home when Ina brought quite a bit of food and sat opposite me. When did the relationship between you and Dr. Allen from the cardiology department become so good? Jessica, a bit embarrassed, said Dr. Edward is a friend of mine. Turns out you two have this kind of relationship. I just found out not long ago. We've been informed. Sophia said next time you mention Dr. Edward's name, I'll check for you for free. That's great. Then we won't be polite. As we ate and chatted from a distance, we saw Ariana carrying a box of food, clearly bringing it for Daniel. But instead of heading towards the exit, he walked towards me. Ethan, let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. We've broken up, I said bluntly. The people around us suddenly fell silent, curious and looking at us. Continued to eat her meal calmly. Dr. Edward ate faster or it would get cold. Ariana glanced at Sophia, her face turning sour. You and her are together. That's why you broke up so quickly. Ariana's tray fell to the ground with a loud clang, attracting the attention of many people. Don't think everyone is as dirty as you. We broke up because of Daniel. Dr. Daniel, the surgeon Daniel, because he is your first love. The two of you are about to get back together, and I, not wanting to see you suffer, chose to step back. Well said. Jessica clapped her hands. We don't play this kind of three-way game. It's not ethical. Ariana's face turned even more sour. Dr. Edward, are you humiliating me? I'm just stating the truth. I paused for a moment. Or should I be more straightforward and say that you pushed me? Ethan. Ariana restrained her anger and quickly returned to her usual calm and rational demeanor. I'm saying it again, I'm not with Daniel. Please respect him. She adjusted her glasses and continued. Moreover, you always talk tough and refuse to back down. You don't feel ashamed when people step on you. And you don't think about the eyes of others when they stand by and laugh at you. Ariana has always been the type of person who likes to handle private matters behind closed doors. In the past, when we argued, I sought the opinions of my close friends and cousins, hoping they could view the issue from a neutral standpoint. But when Ariana found out, she told me that everything should be resolved internally, and not let outsiders make a joke out of us. Aren't your close friends and cousins also outsiders? She replied. They are outsiders to this extent. I think I've seen through her true nature. When it's not in her favor, she wants to handle it internally, but when it's not in my favor, she can spread it around everywhere. I will wait for the hospital to give me an explanation. If not, I won't just sit still and endure it. The silent atmosphere was suddenly broken by a mocking laugh. After it's done, do you still fear what others will say? Ariana coldly looked at Dr. Allen. I'm not talking to you. Don't interfere. Sophia raised her hands and laughed helplessly. All right. I also hope you don't bother my brother. I looked at Ariana. That's enough. I still have to eat. Please don't look for me anymore. Ariana looked at me deeply for a moment, then turned and left. Sophia suddenly asked, Dr. Edward, have you moved out yet? Not yet. I've been on duty lately, so I haven't gone home. Then hurry up and move out to make room for the third person. Come on, I'll help you move. I saw Ariana's back stiffen, but she didn't turn her head. That night I didn't have a shift, so I went back to pack up. Ariana was also there. We were both busy with work and hadn't cleaned up for a few days. A thin layer of dust had settled on the table. I folded my clothes and put them into boxes. Ariana stood leaning on the balcony, her gaze unclear, but she didn't say anything. I didn't have many belongings. Of course, I didn't take any of the shared items. After packing up, I called Sophia. Dr. Allen, I'm done. She picked up the phone and I sat on the sofa lost in thought. I had lived here for a long time. It felt a bit regretful to just pack up and leave. Sophia texted me saying she had come downstairs. As soon as I opened the door, I heard Ariana ask, What's the relationship between you and Sophia? No relationship. Ethan, I'm asking you for the last time. Do you really want to leave through this door today? Yes. The more she acted dejected, the more I was determined. Then don't come back in the future, she said coldly. All the clothes you're wearing were bought by me. Oh right, I said without hesitation, laughing and throwing my coat in her face. Return them to you? Don't think I'm taking advantage of you. Everything you've given me has been reciprocated with gifts. Your things, return them to you. Ariana's face turned dark as she rummaged around and threw things at me. I didn't accept them and threw them straight into the trash can. Then I pushed the suitcase outside. Ariana suddenly blocked the way with her foot. What are you doing? Do we really have to make such a fuss? She grabbed my hand tightly. Ethan, I didn't mean to push you. You can report to the hospital and the police. Can you bear to let me lose my job? Ethan, my husband, realizing then that, rational as she was, she wouldn't do something so pointless. I was about to speak when her phone rang. Seeing the caller, she fell silent for 2 seconds before answering. Where are you? The room was so quiet that I could hear the weak voice of Daniel on the other end of the line. Does it hurt? Can't you sleep? Are you uncomfortable? Tell me, are you paralyzed? Will you not be able to walk again? No, Ariana, I said with a faint smile. Why pretend to be strong in front of me? Go back to the hospital with Dr. Daniel. He's the one who really needs you. Ariana, am I bothering you and Dr. Edward? I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't listen any further. Just then Sophia arrived. Why so few things? The elevator goes all the way to the basement. We loaded the items into the car. I saw Ariana's car. She must be going to meet Daniel, right? It's really funny. Dr. Edward, are you taking a vacation tomorrow? Why do I need to take a vacation? Sometimes I really can't keep up with Dr. Allen's way of thinking. Celebrate, of course. Sophia raised her charming eyes. Get rid of that silly boyfriend. Don't you think it's worth celebrating properly? Come on, I'll take you out for a fun night. Let's drink a lot. I vaguely remembered the past. I was so healthy. As soon as I entered your hospital, I got sick. You people only care about money. Today we have to make things clear. If it's not resolved properly, it's not like now when patients hold on to the railing and get angry for no reason. Teacher, I'm really wronged. I've retired, and yet I'm still being framed. It was winter at that time. I had just finished my shift, changed into my fur coat, and was about to go home when I saw that scene and rushed over. Fortunately, I was wearing thick clothes and fur gloves. The old man was holding a bloody railing and refused to let go. The teacher was lucky to survive. Later, I was transferred to another department. My hands seemed to be fine, but when holding the scalpel, they trembled. The teacher was in the intensive care unit, crying and scolding me for being foolish. Later, he used my bravery from that year to hurt me, saying that since I had shielded someone else before, I should do it again. Someone gently patted me on the back at that moment. It's okay, everything will pass. When Daniel was discharged from the hospital, many reporters came to interview him in his hospital room. I'm not afraid of illness. I'm just afraid of not being able to stand on the operating table again. I hope the wound heals quickly. There are still many patients waiting for me. When asked about his view on the patient disturbance this time, Daniel pondered for a moment and then said sincerely, I don't blame him. Everyone has their own difficulties. Life is full of mistakes. This video quickly became famous on the internet. That doctor is so kind and gentle. I once registered for a consultation with him. He was very patient. He even operated on my father. At first I was worried because he was too young, but his skills are truly excellent. If something really happens, it would be a great loss to lose such a good doctor. At the end of the interview, Daniel publicly confessed to Ariana. The whole department knew that Daniel was Ariana's first love. The first love, the bright moonlight, the beautiful years of youth. So, Ariana and Daniel got back together and posted on social media, looking extremely happy. I quietly liked the post, indicating that I already knew. Sophia immediately commented, "A pair of petty people. They really are a match made in heaven." Colleagues who had a good relationship with me also commented one after another. I held my phone, crying and laughing at the same time because I was moved. After a while of laughing, I suddenly wasn't angry anymore. Maybe it's because it's not worth it. Ariana is no longer worth my anger or hurt. Recently, I've been assisting in the hospital, observing several surgeries, working all day to the point where my back aches and I can't stand straight. When the shift ends in the early morning, I collapse onto the floor. A nurse brought me a small bread and a box of milk. I took out the packaging and chewed it dry. The young nurse said it was from Dr. Allen. She came to find me in the afternoon but didn't see me. "Thank you," I said to the young nurse. She hesitated and said, "Is it true that Dr. Ariana is really dating Dr. Daniel? Moreover, she even pushed you?" The story has already spread. Everyone knows. They just want to see how the hospital will handle it. Dr. Ariana is really too much. She seems decent, but I've had a bad feeling for a long time. I think this incident will be brushed aside. Of course, in the afternoon, I was called to observe one of Daniel's surgeries. When I arrived, he was discussing. During the surgery with the patient and their family, I don't know what he said, but the patient's family was moved to tears. "Dr. Daniel, we rely on you. I will do my best." The patient also needs to have faith and stay in good spirits. The surgery went perfectly. It was very beautiful to watch. I stood there coldly, not knowing when Ariana had arrived. She said to me that she wanted to become a doctor like him. Just working hard is not enough, so I coldly retorted, "So I have to shield him?" She calmly replied, "I think it's not necessary." I almost thought that finally she had come to her senses, but the next second she said, "But I think people need a spirit of dedication. Sometimes you have to admit that everyone admires those who are outstanding. People with talent are always seen through a special lens, with a halo of perfection. If Daniel were really injured this time and couldn't hold the scalpel for surgery anymore, it's clear that he could have saved many people. But because of this accident, those people lost their chance to survive." She paused, her clear eyes looking at me. "Dr. Edward, don't you feel guilty at all? He is an excellent doctor who needs to be loved and taken care of." I just said one thing and then remained calm as usual. After the surgery ended, Ariana, Daniel, and the person in charge were called into the office. The first thing they said to me was that perhaps this was a misunderstanding. Dr. Ariana explained that she just wanted to pull me, but accidentally pulled in the wrong direction. I couldn't believe it. Staring at Ariana, I said, "Ariana, you are really terrifying. You did it but dare not admit it." Ariana retorted, "Dr. Edward, aren't you terrifying? You proposed a breakup and even recorded it." I just wanted to make it clear who was right and wrong. Later on, people will stand on the side of the strong. I replied, "No, it's not about standing on the side of the strong, but on the side of public opinion." At this moment, Daniel spoke up in a gentle voice. "Dr. Edward, are you hallucinating? Clearly, I was the one who got hurt, and yet you say Dr. Ariana hurt you to protect me." Here I understood everything. It was not surprising at all. I leaned back and scanned the faces with different expressions. So how should this be handled? It's just a misunderstanding, all right. I stood up. If the hospital can't give me a fair answer, I will report to the police and sue Ariana. Angrily I shouted, "Dr. Edward, do you have to make things difficult for me? I know you're taking revenge on me and Dr. Daniel, but can you calm down now?" Daniel also spoke up. "Yes, it was just a push. Moreover, nothing serious happened. Dr. Daniel is right, you're still young. Making a big deal out of a small issue is not learning from the 2000s generation's office revolution. Is it? The young people nowadays really are not good, not good. The others also echoed. Dr. Edward, calm down. Dr. Ariana is also an excellent doctor. Losing Dr. Daniel, Dr. Ariana, or even you would be a great loss to the hospital. We all work in the same hospital. Don't make things too tense. I asked, is the hospital really determined to cover up for Dr. Ariana? My tone was a bit heavy. I think this is not covering up but wanting to resolve it smoothly. I took off my name badge, then I chose to quit. I don't need to work in a hospital like this. Ethan, Ariana will follow me. I turned my head and politely nodded to Teacher Alex. Teacher Alex said, all right, this matter is considered as if Ariana was wrong. She did something improper and deserves to be blamed. But Ethan, have you forgotten the good things Ariana has done for you? The day you had appendicitis, she asked me for help. On your birthday, she also asked for permission to be with you. Can you show some consideration for the sake of your teacher and my teacher, and not pursue her responsibility? Mentioning my teacher, I was silent for a while. Then I raised my head and said firmly, I haven't forgotten the reason she pushed me. But she chose to hurt me. Doesn't she fear that I might die? Teacher, I respect you, but I don't regret my decision. Teacher Alex saw that I was unmoved. His voice became irritated. Now you don't leave any feelings for her at all. This is no different from cutting off someone's lifeline. Ethan, if you still want to stay in the hospital, you should be more tolerant. Our conversation was quite loud. A few people passing by also echoed, yes, yes, Ethan, think of the past feelings. Don't make things too tense. There's no big deal, why make it tiring? People shouldn't be too stubborn. Stubbornness is losing. I stopped and looked around. I said that people standing outside cared more than advising me to be tolerant. Yes, advising others to be tolerant will be struck by lightning. I agreed. A soft voice came from the corner of the room, making everyone around embarrassed and not knowing what to say next. All right, I still have patients to examine. It's over. Everyone left. I turned into the staircase, sat down and rubbed my eyes. They were dark, aching and strained. Perhaps it was because I had been on duty too much lately. Jessica was full of emotion. Dr. Edward, as a doctor, don't you know that MT shouldn't be used with force? I turned around. She handed me a pack of eye masks with slightly moisturizing effects. Try it. Every time I feel uncomfortable with my eyes, I use it. Thank you, I said, taking the pack in my hand. The fragrance wafted out. Jessica sat down next to me and asked unexpectedly, do you recognize me? What's missing? I curiously observed her. A beautiful face was partially covered by a mask. Her blue and white uniform was neat, and her pocket was always filled with a row of pins, but there was no name tag next to the pins. I was astonished. Don't tell me. Yes, she huffed proudly. A hospital like this is not necessary for me to work in. I was even more surprised. You've heard it all? Not just you, many other doctors have also heard it. They are very impressed with you. I sighed. Impressed? What good is that if they handle things properly? I didn't want things to. In the first place, I support you. I tried to probe, why are you so nice to me? Her eyes flickered for a moment under my gaze. Her charming eyes and the smile under the mask were even brighter. You are my good friend. Taking care of you is natural, silly. I'm not honest. I paused for a moment and continued. You like me, don't you? She was stunned for a second, then laughed helplessly. Why are you so smart? I sighed and apologized. I just went through a deceitful relationship and am not ready to enter a new one yet. She rarely withdrew her playful demeanor and replied seriously. I know. That's why I've never told anyone. I dare not bully my student. A familiar voice rang out from outside. I thought I was mistaken. I heard someone was bullying my student. I came here to seek justice. Teacher. I jumped up and ran out. What brought you here? Teacher, don't play this trick on me. I heard someone was bullying a student. I came here to seek justice. I ran towards him and stopped in front of his car. My voice trembled. Why did you come without letting me know in advance? Son, don't be afraid. I will seek justice for you. He gently patted me on the shoulder, still with the same kind and gentle demeanor as always. I was choked up, my eyes red. The teacher angrily said, Don't think that I'm old and in a wheelchair. It's easy to bully my students. Are your students not students? My students are not either. Today I will use my age to make a fuss about this. There must be an explanation. My students will always be my pride. The wall that blocked me, give it to me. Where are you hiding, you bunch of good-for-nothings? Daring to teach my students. Ariana, stop working or be fired. That's your decision. The rest just hand it over to the police. A doctor without basic morality does not deserve to be a doctor. What do you mean by being good for nothing, doctor? That's a personal favor of Ariana. Her private feelings have nothing to do with my students. What about the internal medicine department? What about the surgery department? If the excellence of a doctor is judged only by whether they can hold the scalpel for surgery, then that's the biggest joke of the day. That day, the teacher who had to sit in a wheelchair for life because of the intentional internal medicine department quarreled with the entire committee, leaving them no way out. In addition, the firmness of the other doctors finally led to Ariana being suspended from work. Before leaving, she said to me, "Dr. Edward, you are really ruthless. I loved the wrong person." This woman, even at the last minute, still didn't forget to make me disgusted. Fortunately, the teacher heard it and frowned. Nonsense. Nonsense. Teacher, in the past it was really blind to pair you and Ariana together, making you suffer so much unreasonable pain. Now the teacher regrets it to the point of being green with envy. But my daughter, the road is long. Everything has been resolved, so move on. Don't look back. Facing the teacher who always cared for and nurtured me, I finally revealed my own weakness and lack of confidence. Teacher, if Daniel really gets hurt and can't hold the scalpel for surgery again, then he should fire Ariana and let her take legal responsibility. They all said I was petty. I was confused. Am I wrong? But I felt I was not wrong. I just want to seek justice. Son, what does that have to do with you? The teacher smiled, still gentle and benevolent as before. Even if I die, it has nothing to do with you. Yes, it has nothing to do with me. If it weren't for Teacher Sophia and the colleagues' support, I would have been manipulated by Ariana and those on her side. They thought that if something happened to Daniel, he would be like the teacher, never able to hold the scalpel for surgery again. But if it happened again, I would still not hesitate to shield the teacher. But Ariana and Daniel, they don't deserve it. They clearly don't deserve it. But they tried to leave you with a scar of guilt. A child with the ability to judge who doesn't need to sympathize. Oh, my good child, be a child with the ability to judge who doesn't need to blame yourself or waste compassion on anyone. I sent the teacher out of the hospital building. The teacher suddenly turned his head and looked at the towering building. The teacher sighed with emotion. This place, my son, I will never come back to. But Ethan, I want to tell you that whether you hold the scalpel for surgery or not, you are still a great doctor with a good heart. I may not come back, but now at the school, I am training more classes of children like you. After that, everything was resolved according to the legal process. I never saw Ariana again. Life still goes on with medical examinations, disease prevention, and writing medical records. My parents urged me to get married, and during the spring festival, Sophia officially confessed to me. I completely forgot about Ariana and happily agreed. Sophia is not Ariana. She brought me a completely new experience in love. We studied together, progressed together, and she even secretly organized a birthday party for me with my colleagues. Every time I entered the hospital, my colleagues would say, "Dr. Edward, can you manage Dr. Allen?" Whenever she attended a seminar or went for further studies, she would always bring back local specialties for me. She also liked to post pictures of our relationship on social media, even showing off the buns I made. Today I just parked my car and saw the two of them struggling at the corner of the street. It was Ariana. She had been released. She was wearing a striped shirt, her hair disheveled, no longer having the spirit of a doctor. If it weren't for Dan standing next to her, I almost wouldn't have recognized him. Men, you are all ungrateful. You are truly ungrateful. I resigned for you. Who did I resign for? For myself? No, it was for you, wasn't it? Since being released from prison, Ariana has been clinging to Daniel. He has heard too many criticisms and has become numb. Break up. Let's break up. How dare you break up with me? Telling you I will cling to you for life. Where's the money? You just received a bonus, give it to me. Didn't I give you $7,000 last month? It's gone. Hurry up and give it to me, Daniel. Take out your wallet. But Ariana grabbed it. She even took his bank card and password. After receiving the password, she turned around and left. Daniel, helpless, sat down with his head down. A car passed by, its horn blaring, but he didn't hear it. I had to step forward and remind him. Daniel, look up. Dr. Edward, you must despise me a lot. We walked into the hospital building one after the other. He muttered. What have I done to my life? I used to be such a promising doctor. My future was ruined by a madman. Yes, he didn't argue. He just continued. At that time, I must have been bewitched, constantly reminiscing about the beautiful school days. I just couldn't bear it when I saw you two together. I just wanted to sabotage your relationship. Now I understand that the most foolish thing is to compete over a woman. You can compete in academics, career, power, money, anything, but never over a woman. I completely agree. I'm really sorry, Dr. Edward. Back then I took her side. Can you forgive me? I shook my head. Frankly, it's not easy to forgive something like that, and it's too late. He gave a faint smile. You're right. Don't forgive me. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to forgive either.
I'm truly sorry.
I didn't say anything. I just smiled and walked away.